For those that don't know me, I'm Jeremy Hecker. I'm the racing service manager at Pioneer Midwest. Pretty much in charge of anything and everything to do with taking care of skis. So stone grinding, waxing skis, race service. So we have a neutral race service. I'm heading the Berkey wax service. So we're last year we waxed, I think it was 486 pair of skis for last year's Berkey. I'm hoping that number does not grow anymore. We've raised our prices to hopefully combat that, but people keep on signing up for it, so yeah. And then in addition to that, I also work a lot on the side with other teams, other programs. Helped out with Team Berkey most recently. But just upcoming here next week, I'll be heading to Whistler, BC for World Junior Championships, U23 Championships. So I'll be working overseas there for that, or not overseas, outside of the country, outside of the continent. So, but yeah, I'll be there for those races, helping support the U.S. ski team. So, cool. Well, let me get my recording started here, and we'll get going. All right, looks like we're good here. So once again, welcome everybody here. The topic for tonight's clinic is pretty much going over like the basics of glide wax and how you can really maintain a fairly simple wax box for both training and racing. So everything I'm discussing tonight is going to be fairly simple for you to use and very limited amount of products. They're going to work in a very wide range of conditions and can be used at a fairly high level in some cases without really breaking the budget. So we will have everything that I'm talking about tonight, I think except for maybe one or two products, because I forgot to bring them. We will have them for sale in back at discounts. So it'll be higher discount tonight if you were to buy any of this stuff. So see Corey, Max, Ian, or Tom, Jake, Matt might show up. We'll have a few of us employees here, but there'll be definitely somebody stationed out back being able to sell the items that I'm talking about tonight. And before we get any further, did everybody get their raffle tickets? Yes? Cool. So we'll have some draw prizes at the end of the clinic. So Forgotten Sorrow was kind enough to donate some items here for this raffle. So there's two $25 gift cards. And a few free beers in there, and then we were able to get some stuff scrounged up from the shop. So at the end of the night, there'll be a little bit of raffle there. So, yeah, so let's get started with just the very basics of waxing. So I'm going to start out with a blank ski here. A few skis prepped in advance. So when we are working with a ski, one of the most important steps of this entire process is getting the ski clean. So starting off with a glide cleaner. It's back here. So I use a big service bottle. We have smaller bottles available as well. But the reason why you want to use this glide cleaner is kind of twofold. One, when you are waxing your skis with an iron, even the liquid waxes. Previously to that, I'm assuming that you guys got out and skied on it. When you're out skiing on the wax, especially on a day like today, it's pretty dirty snow. You have that dirt is going to be kind of still in that ski base. And yes, you could just crayon on your wax and hit it with an iron. But what you're effectively doing is you are ironing in whatever that dirt, debris, gunk is in your skis into your ski bases. That's not something that really will glide well. There's no dirt in these waxes here. So taking that dirt out is gonna be a good thing. The other additional benefit to this, especially the Rex Glide Cleaner, there is a high amount of paraffin content in these waxes. So you can put this on, and while you are cleaning the ski, you're actually replacing that with a fairly hard, durable wax. Essentially what this glide cleaner is a diluted form of G41. So for those that know the G series, which I will be talking about here shortly, the G series, G41 is the ultra hard wax. the pink green stuff that you use at early season, or again, you get to beat up snow like today, G41 will work well. So to apply glide cleaner, we use the Rex fiber cloth, and I will splash some of the glide cleaner onto the cloth, and then just apply it to the ski. Just wiping down the ski, apply a little bit more. There we go. And so there's two different ways to clean the skis. So the way that the bottle tells you, and it's a good way to do it, is to just apply it, let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes. When it dries, then you brush it out. So when it dries, it will, I'll show you that later. But because I don't want this to dry out right away. What I like to do instead is to actually do a two-part. So I will brush it out once while wet, and I'll be using a metal brush. So I prefer a steel brush, but you brush it out once while wet, and this ski, I don't know how much it's been skied on. Max, how long did you ski on these skis? 10K. See that? I mean, I'm pretty certain everybody can see how much gunk came out of this ski. So this is a wet clean. So while the waxer, the glide cleaner was still wet, I brush it off. Immediately I go into a second application of this. So I'll just put it back on again. Exact same thing as before. And now I will follow the directions and let it dry. So I find that if you do both of those pieces, it'll actually do a slightly better job of cleaning, and you're not really losing anything out of it. Yeah, you're applying the glide cleaner twice, using double the amount of wax, but you're not using that much, not that expensive, and not that much time. You're adding on an additional 30 seconds to really help clean out your skis. So I'm gonna let this one sit off to the side and show you guys. So once you get done to the end, you'll see the ski is going to be a little bit like a milky substance, kind of like a powdery substance there. That is the paraffin product in this G41. That signifies that it's now dry. You can now brush it off. So brushing it off, again, I like to use the metal brush. Metal brush, especially the steel brush, does a really good job of cleaning out the ski bases, and it will actually get into the structure and clean out the structure of the ski. So there's kind of a hierarchy of brushes, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, and why I prefer steel over any of the other types of metal brushes. So again, just brush one way with a metal brush. Bring off, and this will be a little bit more dusty, chalky coming up. And again, I'll take the clean piece of fiber cloth, get down to the end, and again, even dirty, you'll see, or even dry clean, there's still some dirt in this. Granted, this is a different ski than the one that I originally did, so I don't know how many K this ski's been on, but ski's now clean. So, next, yes, question.
Is it okay to use the same brush, or when you clean it with the first brush, is that considered a dirty brush? And you only use that for?
So, good question. I'm going to repeat that question here so that the audio can come in. So, the question was if you should use the same brush, metal brush, or if you should potentially use a different brush. And in an ideal situation, you're going to have a different brush for cleaning than you do for waxing your skis. Again, it's something similar to like, I made this analogy to Tom the other day. We did a clinic with just Tom and Max. We had breakfast, and the analogy was, would you use your toilet brush and your toothbrush at the same time for the same job? No. So consider this the toilet brush. You wouldn't want to put this on something you want to clean. That being said, it's not the end of the world. If you only have one metal brush, it's not a huge deal. You're not going to really be making that much of a difference there. But if you have a second brush, Having one dedicated to cleaning skis is definitely nicer. And in an even more ideal situation, which is just kind of nitpicking a little bit, but having a different wet brush and a dry brush. The reason being is that if you do the wet brush and then you go for a dry brush right afterwards, that brush is still wet. So I like to have a brush that is actually dry when I'm brushing out, when I'm trying to do a dry brush. So if you were to be in a hurry, having two brushes, but if you're not in a hurry, like go get coffee, go get a beer, let the brush dry and the ski dry. So should only take a few minutes.
Jeremy, it looked like quite a bit of dust came off with that one brush. That would have suggested to me I needed to go back over it again. You don't want to get all
partially
off.
that could be because this brush itself, I use this is just my paraffin brush. So like
Okay.
there's a lot of dust coming off of this brush to begin with.
All right.
So generally a cleaning brush will not have all this stuff in it. So that's mostly what you were seeing.
Okay.
So, but again, that being said, with a liquid product like this, knowing that you're going to do more steps afterwards, not as imperative to have a super like immaculately clean, like perfect brush job. So, all right, so into the next piece here. So we're going to be looking at that first step afterwards, and this is all in an ideal situation. We can cut corners, and I'll talk about how to cut corners at the end of this for those that either want to save time or save money. Right now, I'm just talking about like this is the ideal setup for somebody that's a novice racer, intermediate racer, somebody that's a good racer that just wants to train on their skis. So going on to a melt-on product. And so the nice thing about this, furnace kicked on. So the nice thing about this setup that I'm doing, you only need one melt-on wax. Rex Blue. So Rex Blue is kind of a go-to, do everything type of wax. If it's really cold conditions, this is nice, hard enough wax that is durable in colder weather. If it's warm out like this and it's dirty, cruddy snow, you want to have a harder wax on there. And then in the midwinter blue conditions, this is one of the best on the market. So it can kind of do everything there. Fairly easy to apply for a hard wax compared to some other harder waxes out there. So to do this, I have an iron set at 145 degrees. I think the package on Rex Wax says 140. I find it does go on a little bit easier, a little bit better at 145. And so with this, the reason why it can go on easier and better at 145 is iron's hotter. And I know a lot of people worry about, okay, hey Jeremy, what about burning your skis? Well, you're actually more likely to burn your skis at a lower iron temperature than you would be at a higher iron temperature. The reason is that at a lower iron temperature, in order for that wax to fully melt and get on there, you have to move that iron slowly. And so at a slightly higher iron temperature, I can move that iron faster, so the iron's touching the ski for less time. And so, I mean, I would rather have you iron at 180 degrees than at 120. Because at 120, you're gonna have to sit that iron on there for a very long period of time. 180, you can just fly through it. So 145, I find to be a really good setup there. So with this, I'll apply using the crayon method. So crayon on the wax onto the iron and directly onto the ski. And so one thing you'll notice is where I have that iron placed. The iron is directly over the ski. So in the event that a wax droplet drops onto the ski, drops off my iron, it's going onto the ski. I'm not wasting any wax by having the iron held over here or over the bench. So any droplet that comes off of this iron will go directly onto the ski. And then generally, this is just a habit of mine. What I do at the end is I'll just drag the tip of the iron, because there's usually a little drop of wax that's just waiting to drop off. I'll drag that onto the ski, and you'll notice here. So right there at the very end, I got a little droplet of wax, a little bead of wax. That helps get this started. But when you crayon on that wax, it does a pretty good job of covering most of the ski. And so now, with that set, I will do one pass with the iron, And when I'm holding the iron, I will generally be holding on to kind of the back part of the iron and putting more pressure on the back of the iron. Not necessarily lifting up the front, but I'm not putting pressure like down in the center iron, it's more towards the back. And that will help direct the wax towards the back of the iron here. And especially when I get to the tail of the ski, I'll lift it up and you can get a really nice pass there. So when I'm doing this, one nice pass, and I'll even mess up just really quickly on purpose. So I did one nice pass here and I picked up the iron. So you guys see right in here, I missed a spot. Now, the best thing for me to do is to not go over this with an iron again. So I'm going to set the ski off to the side, let it wait before I hit it with an iron again. Yes, I missed that. And it'd be really easy for me to just go back with an iron and hit that spot again. That's another way for you to potentially burn your ski. And we're all trying to mitigate those risks in burning your skis. So for me, I'm gonna set the ski off to the side, let it cool down fully before I hit it up with an iron again. So I can feel, as feel this entire ski, there's some residual heat in here. So I wanna have this basically back to room temperature before I hit it with an iron one more time. So I'm gonna set this ski off to the side. So I do have another ski here that I've already ironed, but you notice I missed two of these spots. So this ski is in a little bit better shape than I did in that other one because I didn't purposely miss it, but you see like right there, very small spot I missed, like very small. Maybe right there again, another small spot. That really doesn't matter. So like this, I would 100% just pass it on, it's good. Because probably what's gonna end up happening is the next time I iron, put wax in, I will get that one very, very small spot. So it's not worth putting the iron across the entire ski again to get that 1% of the wax that I may have missed. So safer for the ski to not touch it to the iron again, and no one will notice the difference. You won't notice the difference, I won't notice the difference in glide performance by not getting that one teeny little spot there. So, yes?
Tricky question, but always tip the tail? The iron?
For the most part, yes. In classic skiing, you can sometimes do with kick zones, do the opposite direction, but generally tip to tail is better. It really does not make a difference whatsoever with ironing. You can iron tip to tail, tail to tip. I don't think the ski will notice. I always just do it in one way because I can't do it that way. So, cool. So now that we got that on, now we need to take the wax off. Yes?
I was gonna say the drip versus crayon method.
The crayon method is, so the question here was drip versus crayon method. And 100% drip is the better, safer, more economical way to apply it. So, crayon. Did I say drip? So, yes. Crayon. I will do a quick demonstration here, actually, showing the difference between the two. Let me. So, back half of this ski is already crayoned on. So front half I'm going to drip on. So one, you can see how much more wax I am wasting. So I am wasting a lot of wax here. And then passing at the same speed I normally would if I had applied it correctly. And you'll notice I'm missing a lot more spots in here and the groove is completely filled up. So again, that shows how much wax I'm wasting and I'm not hitting those spots again. And so for me to get these little spots down, I'd have to hold that iron down on the ski longer. Again, more risk of burning. So craning on that wax is gonna be 100% safer to do so than dripping it on. So. Alright, going back to that original ski that I had scraped, or not scraped, ironed on. So I'll now get to the scraping process. So with this, grab your groove pencil. Very first thing that you do, get the grooves. The reason why I want to do the grooves first is that if I accidentally come off the ski, I'm going across wax, I'm not going across the ski base. That's going to help protect the ski base from an accidental scratch if I'm doing that. So, second, grab my regular scraper. I will hit the edges of the ski first. Just a little bit of light pressure. It helps get the wax off that kind of built on the edges of the ski. And then from there, again, tip to tail, entire way, brushing it off, scraping it off. And so again, I'm not trying to do a perfect job of scraping, but on a flat ski it really does help. So I got off most of the wax there. Still a bit of wax there that you can't really see, and that's where it comes down to the brushes. And so getting a good brush or having a good brush makes a big, big difference. So I'm going to brush the ski in front half and back half. Front half I will do it with a metal brush and a nylon brush. The back half I will do with just a nylon brush. So front half, this gold brush here, this is my favorite brush. Just 4, 5, 6 passes there, and then take the fiber cloth, and then a nylon brush. And a nylon brush you can scrub back and forth. Alright, and then on the back half of the ski, I'll do the same thing, just a nylon brush.
Is that white or blue nylon?
This is a blue nylon.
Okay.
So blue nylon from Red Creek is a little bit stiffer than the white nylon. I prefer the blue nylon from Red Creek. Other companies, it might be different. I know like Swix, the blue nylon is a little bit softer. I like the white nylon from Swix. Basically, it's just a stiff nylon is what I'm looking for. The reason being is that it does a better job of polishing. And so that's what I'm trying to get out with a nylon brush is polishing. Metal brush, I'm trying to get wax out of the ski. Nylon brush, polish. So what's going to end up happening here is that I flip the ski over. It's going to be hard to see unless you were like really closely looking at it. And I'll have this back here at the end. But basically, this part of the ski, I do not see any wax whatsoever in that ski base. But in here, especially along the groove, there's definitely some residual wax. And for those that want to afterwards, I can show you. You'll notice it by a little bit of shiny stuff. So for that, I'd want to go and brush it more. So I could probably get it out eventually with this, but it's going to take a lot of work. That's where having a metal brush cut some corners. And specifically, again, a steel brush. So that will take that wax out of the ski pretty quickly. So now that we have a ski that is clean, very next step here is going to be applying liquid waxes. So we got the cleaner done. Then we got that melt on Rex Blue Paraffin. Now we get the liquid waxes. Can you grab me with all the liquids? Yeah. Okay. I want to explain. Okay. So for liquid waxes, from Rex, there's 4 different waxes in the G series. So the G series is their entry level race product. And what I've actually noticed is that that product works really well even at a high end. So, for example, G21 is the blue product, which Ian will bring up here in just a moment. The G21 Blue is one of the few products that has been used on the World Cup circuit. World Cup currently can use full fluoros. For a non-fluoro wax to be used in a full fluoro setting, it's speaks a lot for that wax. It hasn't been very often. It's been around for 5 or 6 years now, and I think it's been used once or twice. But for it to work out, so that's this product here, that kind of just shows that it has that level of performance that really can't be beaten. Granted, that was like the very underlayer base coat. There's a lot of powders and liquids and other pure fluoro stuff that got put on top. But very bottom was a non-fluoro wax. But the reason why I like this system here is that we put down a basic layer, Rex Blue, that covers every condition that you can think of. And now, in that race setting, you get to race day and it's like, okay, Jeremy, it is condition like today. You can augment that Rex Blue to run warmer, to run into dirtier snow, more transformed snow, G41. And if we didn't get so much rain, and it was just like that still natural snow, so maybe like earlier last week when it was warm out, but we saw really nice solid natural snow, G11, this is the warm product that works on more natural snow. All last week when the skiing was fantastic. G21, normal winter conditions on normal snow. And then hopefully tomorrow when we get new snow, G21G. So what these liquids do is that you can adapt that Rex Blue underneath to the very specific conditions you are looking for. And in a race setting, this is going to be a pretty good setup for you. These waxes retail $26.50. Or MAP retails a little bit higher, but what we sell them for is $26.50. So 4 of them, let's say $100, and then you can buy a $16 thing of Rex Blue. That's $116. You're into a race wax setup. I mean, you're never going to be out of the mix with those waxes. Yes, there will probably be something out there that might be faster, and it will probably be a lot more expensive. But for $116 in a race setting, that's great. For training, I mean, you can't really beat it. Very, very simple system to use. Very easy to work with. But to apply these waxes, there's 3 different versions of these waxes in different application methods. So I will show all 3 of them. You've already seen one of them. We have service bottles of all these waxes. So application is the exact same way as a glide cleaner. Shake the bottle up, apply it to the ski. Then we have the dauber bottles. So these are the cheapest method, and I think the easiest to use. So a little bingo dauber on top. So with this, you'll just kind of start it, get some liquid flowing, and once that liquid's flowing, it comes out pretty easy. And so I want to get a nice, easy application here of that ski. Don't need to put on too much. Basically just make it so that way you can kind of see I did the front half here. The entire ski is wet. That's all you need to see is just that entire ski being wet. Once that happens, just let it dry out. With these products, the longer you can let it sit, the longer that you can let it dry, the better it will work. So ideally you're going to be able to let it sit at room temperature, but you can still even do it outside if needed for 20 or 30 minutes. Anything past that 20 or 30 minute mark, you're just going to be increasing performance. So ideally, I tell customers, if you know you're skiing in the morning, you know you're racing in the morning, just apply it overnight. Apply it before you go to bed, put it on the ski, let it sit, and in the morning just brush it out. Very simple to do. So this is one application method. Second application method comes in a spray bottle. This is a different product. This is RG42, but same thing. So with this, there's a correct way and an incorrect way to apply the sprays. Now, what most people will probably end up doing is just spray it directly onto the ski. What ends up happening there is you are wasting a lot of product, and you're actually decreasing performance. So when you put that much product on, it gets a little bit gummy, and it just won't work very well. What you want to do is to apply it to your fiber cloth and then wipe it on the ski. So I'll do just a little bit more. And so I use quite a bit less product, and I'm also putting it on thinner onto the ski base, which will make it dry faster and then increase that performance. So I had already set one of these off to the side as a demo. Which one was. No, definitely this one. So, pretty easy to tell which method was correct and which method was incorrect. So, that was the one I just sprayed on. I basically sprayed on just as much as I did previously, and there's so much stuff on there that's a lot of gunk that'll take time to get off, but it'll also be slower. One in front here, this is going to be the Ever bottle, and then one in the back is actually the thinnest method, and that is the spraying it onto a fiber cloth, and getting it thinner is going to work better. If you can do multiple thin applications, that will also help. So you can put it on, 30 minutes later, brush it out, put it on again. That's going to be better than putting on once and then letting it sit overnight. So you can put on 2 layers, 3 layers. It will help out as long as they are thin layers. One of the pieces that I've also noticed with these products, specifically from Rex, they don't interact or work well with like a wool, a cork, anything. The best way to apply these waxes, just let them sit. There's some times where that can help speed things up, but there's also some times when it can slow it down. And I'd rather not risk that slowing the wax down, slowing the ski down. I'd rather do the safer option. The safest option is just to apply it, let it sit, then brush it out. So brushing these waxes out, because they're liquid waxes, they're not that hard paraffin like the melt-on waxes. All you need is just that blue nylon brush. The same blue nylon brush I talked about earlier. Just using this one, and just scrub it. And so that, I will even try to scrub out the mess, like the brush is actually getting stuck in that base. So I'm going to pull off on the back part there. And so I can actually see this. I can actually see still that liquid wax, and there's a little spot in here. It's a little bit darker than the front part of that ski base. That shows that I still didn't get everything out. Ideally, probably what I'm going to do after this is I'm actually going to clean it up and put a melt-on wax to really make sure I got all of that paraffin out of there. But the nice thing is I've got a nice bench here. This is probably a $400 or $500 bench with a $350 profile. You don't need that. With these liquid waxes, you can really do it pretty much just anywhere. We've got cables everywhere. So putting this down, do it on the parking lot, do it in your garage, really anywhere. As long as you just have that brush, you're able to do a fairly decent job. Towards the bottom there, it got a little bit more difficult, but I was able to do pretty much that job that I needed. Yeah?
I have blue liquid wax.
Mhm.
Is that in place then of the hard wax you use? And then I also have Rex liquid wax. You just use one. Do you remember that, like, this, I got Swiss, I was trying to look it up, the Swiss blue.
Yeah. So, good question. So I'm going to repeat that again for the audio. So it sounded like you have Rex liquid blue wax. Does that replace the melt-on wax? And does it, what was the second part of the question?
I also have the Rex G41.
Yeah.
And all these Rex products, is that you put down one blue liquid wax and you put down
Yeah.
the,
Okay.
I have that in box.
Yep. Completely understand that. So, what we've noticed in testing is that as much as we would like to see the liquids fully replace a melt-on waxes still have a place. What we've noticed is that if you only apply liquid waxes, over time that ski base will dry up and seal up. So I see that quite a bit when, especially early season, when somebody gets a stone grind on their skis, I get them prepped with our hot box and race hardened. They go home, put on one layer of a liquid wax, go out and ski. 10 or 15K later, they're probably not very happy. You need to have some melt-on wax, some true melt-on wax into that ski base, and you can supplement with those liquid waxes. So ideally every 3, 4, 5 times that you go out and ski, so that might be 25 to 50K, I probably would put at least 1 layer of a melt-on wax in. Again, if you were to just keep on skiing on those liquid waxes, you're eventually going to notice that there's going to be some issues with your skis. The performance will slow down, the bases will start to turn white, especially if you're on man-made snow, abrasive snow. So the more abrasive a snow is, the more it will kind of rip stuff out. So supplementing the liquid waxes with the glide wax is definitely good. And weirdly enough, we've noticed it more on the racing skis. The higher end skis, the base material seems to be slightly more fragile than entry level skis. So like if you're on an RS7 from Salomon, a Fisher SCS, Atomics C2, or a touring ski, those base materials actually seem to be a little bit hardier, a little bit more durable. We don't notice the same amount of things happening on those cheaper skis as we do on the race skis. On the higher end skis, we do notice that they can dry out fairly quickly if you don't take care of them as well. On those lower end skis, especially like the touring stuff, liquids are perfect. You don't really need to apply a melt-on wax. You still can, it will help them out, but it isn't as necessary as the other level of skis. So, last few things that I want to talk about before we kind of finish up the clinic piece and go on to the lengthy Q&A if people have questions afterwards, but is specifically talking about those brushes. And so brushes are going to be one of the most important pieces of waxing skis. And I've actually noticed this quite a bit when I do neutral race stuff at the J&Qs and even on the World Cup, is that if you brush out the wrong wax better than doing a crappy brush job on the right wax, this is going to win out over the right wax 100% of the time. So application is more important than product. So when I go out testing, I generally will spend a little bit of time testing product and a little bit of time testing application. If I have more time, then I will maybe go back and test out more products and be like, hey, like this product might be a little bit faster, let me try that out. But if I can get down that application method, it's gonna make a bigger difference, a bigger deal than the actual product itself. And that's probably more important on the kick side of things than it is on the glide side of things, because with application, I know how to apply this wax the best. There's really the one way to apply it. I might be able to test a second, but there's not like 10 different ways to apply this one specific wax. I might test the products and then layering those products and figuring that out, but getting the application is really important.
Can you say that again? The very first thing you said, the application, for example, was better than the...
Yeah, so if you were to apply the third best wax and brush it and do a perfect job of waxing that wax, and then have the best wax, apply it maybe not as good and don't brush it out as good, that third best wax is gonna smoke the best wax. So as long as you apply it correctly and brush it out correctly, that's gonna be the best thing that you can do than going down and chasing down another wax. And so figuring out a line, like this Rex line here, applying it correctly, brushing it correctly, you're gonna have very competitive skis if you do everything correctly. So spending time learning that, and that comes down to having the right tools. And brushes are very important.
Okay, so maybe you're gonna talk about this, but you talked about the most important things to have when you're starting out. Like I am starting out
Yeah,
waxing home.
person. I will get to that. So I will get to that. I want to talk specifically about the brushes, and then I'll kind of go into the levels of importance of, okay, if you want everything, get everything. If you want just one specific thing, get this one specific thing. So, for brushes, I specifically talked about these two brushes here. These are pretty much, I use these 3 brushes. It's my roto brush. I use this one probably 90 to 95% of the time. But I'm also waxing a lot of skis. So this helps speed up the process. But hand brushes, I pretty much specifically only use these 2 brushes. So this is the ultra fine steel brush from Red Creek. It's kind of an expensive brush. This is $106, $107, $108 for this brush. We do have them on sale tonight at a pretty good discount. So the reason why I like this brush is it's the very, very fine steel. So this will actually do a very good job of cleaning out the structure. So the little nooks and crannies of that ski, it'll do a good job of ripping that wax out, cleaning out that structure, so everything you apply afterwards is going to be on top of basically as clean of a ski base as you can get. It will also make it so that when you're polishing, and this is the blue nylon brush, polishing, it will do a better job of polishing because there's no wax on there. It'll polish the ski base out really well. Now, $106, $100 and something for a brush, that's kind of scary. It's an expensive brush. There are other alternatives to that. So I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and buy this, but this is a very good brush. Other alternatives, if you want to spend just a little bit less money, there's another steel brush from Red Creek. This one is $45. It's not as fine of a steel as the ultra fine, but it is more fine than a bronze brush, a brass brush, and really whenever you can get into a steel brush over a brass brush when you have those decisions, steel for the most part is going to be better than bronze or brass.
What about copper?
Huh?
What about copper?
Copper, yeah.
Soft?
Yeah. So basically steel's best. Everything else is just cheaper. If you were to get if you wanted to get a cleaning brush, brass brush is fine. Steel brush is better. This is the best cleaning brush you can get, but you don't necessarily need to buy a $100 cleaning brush. So getting a cheaper brush is going to be nicer for that.
So if you have an older steel brush and you buy a new
Yep.
ultrafine, which one would you use for cleaning?
The old one.
What's that?
The old one would be clean. The ultra fine, the nice brush you want to use on the waxes that are doing that final application, trying to get as much wax out as you possibly can get. That's where this brush is. I mean, it does a good job, better job than any brush at cleaning, but it also does a better job than any brush at taking out wax. So if you're gonna get one for cleaning, you get the cheaper one. But so this steel brush is a fairly affordable option in terms of steel brushes, and it does a pretty good job. Not nearly as good as this one, but it's half the price. So
Jeremy, why is steel better than copper or brass?
generally the bristles are a little bit finer, and because they're finer, they can actually clean out the structure better than a copper or brass will. And so that's the reason why we look at that steel brush over a copper or brass brush is because of the finer bristles. So that kind of covers the brushes there. So if we're talking about
Steel brushes that you should stay away from, like, I've had steel brushes, I thought there was some concern that you might,
there's nothing I've really noticed that's like, I mean, there's, I think Skigo, I don't know, there's one brush that looked really scary to me because it was like very coarse. It looked like a wire brush almost than a wax brush.
Yeah.
And I was like, that might leave some marks in my ski. But for the most part, they're very safe. So, and again, specifically one direction on the brushes.
How much to brush is it possible to overbrush?
Very difficult to overbrush with hand brushes. You're not creating any heat with a hand brush. And really the idea is that you're trying to get out as much wax as possible. Once that wax is out, there's not really much you can do to it. So you can't really overbrush with that. If you let it sit on the ski base for a while, you can build heat and you can seal up your ski base. But still kind of difficult as long as you're doing it correctly. So, so last thing I want to talk about is kind of going over those different levels of, okay, if you were to be a full on into it, this is what you get, and it's like entry level. So starting at the very basic, very bottom. If you're looking at just to help speed up your skis, getting Blue Brush, G21, or we have it for sale back there, original Blue Glider. It's even a little bit cheaper yet of a wax. The G21 will work better, but when you're just looking for a budget option, that's going to be a really, really good starter level. We sell that to a lot of touring skiers. Just these two options here.
And but you risk drying out your skis?
Yes, but generally on that level, this level of skier, they're going to be on a cheaper ski where the base material is
Yep.
a little bit
More tolerant?
more tolerant. Yes, there we go. Yeah, it's strange that it's like that, but that's the way it is.
That's the blue nylon, right? It's-
Yep, blue nylon or any stiff nylon. It doesn't have to be the Red Creek blue. I like the Red Creek blue, but I mean a Swix white nylon, a Toka white nylon, really any stiff nylon does a really good job of just polishing this wax out. Does a good job of removing it and polishing. If you're adding to that, going up one level, the only product that you would add, Glide Cleaner. Glide Cleaner, the blue, and you just keep that nylon brush. Yeah, it'd be nice to get a metal brush, but again, we're just adding one step, doing that. If we're to go past that, I'd probably look at supplementing your liquid waxes. So adding on like G41. So in the Midwest, G41 and G21, this will cover probably 80 to 90% of the conditions that we see. So in the winter, early season, it's man-made snow. You're on G41. In January, it gets really freaking cold sometimes. It hasn't been this January, but G41, this is good and cold. And we have real snow. G21's good. These two waxes, they are good waxes, but this is for when we get new snow. Well, we get new snow, I don't know, once every 2 or 3 weeks, it seems like. And when we get new snow, it turns to regular snow pretty quickly.
Or it rains on it?
Or it rains, and then we're back on man-made snow. So very infrequently does this wax show the light of day here in Minnesota. If you're up north in the spring, when we're on a lot of natural snow and it gets warmer, this is great. But here in the Twin Cities, generally when it rains, things melt very quickly. We're fortunate enough to have enough snow out there that our natural trail will probably make it through this. But in normal years, we'd probably be back on the man-made loops. So we would skip this up entirely and go back to G41. But when there's higher snowpack, G11 in warm weather is awesome. So that's the next step to kind of be supplementing. And then if you were to look at adding everything in, it'd be adding on to that melt-on wax. And this is kind of the biggest hurdle for most people because you can't just buy this. You have to kind of have an entire set. And just off the top of my head, the most affordable setup that we sell is probably $50 to $60 for a cheaper iron. I think we have a tabletop wax station that's like $120, but you need to have your own thing to clamp it to. And then getting the scraper and brushes, or the scrapers, another $10, so it was at $170, $180 to get kind of an entry level waxable station for yourself. So that's kind of that hurdle there. So I would look at, if you're really getting serious about the sport, getting into your own home setup of this. We also do wax of the day at the shop. So if you don't want to put on that melt-on wax, I can do it for you. We charge $15 for that. If you come in during the weekday, we can generally do it on the spot. If you come in on the weekend, we might be able to do it on the spot, but we may not. Depends on how busy we are. So, think that kind of wraps up my clinic part of this. I'm going to just stop my recordings.